Good morning to you on this very thoughtful Thursday. If you have joined us, then you are going to be privy to some of our thoughts as we move through the book of Hebrews and really thinking God's thoughts after Him. So we are continuing on this journey of what it looks like to develop a stick-to-itiveness. What does it look like to press on in the way that is Christ? Dehydration is a terrible problem because depending on the level of hydration in your body, you could die. So how do you rehydrate? Well, you need to take in rehydration solutions, or sometimes it's a powder. Basically, get water into your system to jack up your system. And so you need help, and water helps with that. When you are in a hot space or a hot place and your body is losing its retention of water, you need help. Help in hot spaces is what the writer is talking about in the book of Hebrews as we look at chapter 5, verse number 11, all the way through chapter 6, verse 12 of this unfolding story. It's a sermon. It's an exhortation. And in this exhortation, the writer is encouraging Christian Hebrews to press on, move on, don't stop. And moving on and not stopping has to do with training our senses. Our minds are primed, our wills are tempered, our emotions are calibrated, because we have climbed out of the cot of infancy and we have taken the risk of traversing the journey to wisdom's gym, wisdom's gymnasium. What's wisdom's gym? Well, the text talks about having your senses trained to discern good from evil. The evil in the context has to do with not slipping away into oblivion and destroying your life, ruining it, not sliding for home and think that everything goes onto automatic pilot when you get into your 50s or 60s and beyond. It's an intentional, explicit life that follows the way that is Christ. And so we are in the third episode in this section because we are looking at the importance of taking responsibility for our transformation. Stick with your responsibility to transform and experience the reward that comes from God. So you can avert getting into hot spaces by taking the help that this high priest provides. He provides help in time of need. He is a sympathetic high priest. And in verse number 11 of chapter 5, he raises the issue of the danger of becoming sluggish. Always think of a slug. Our kids, when we came back from the US, they were little, 6 years old and 4 years old. My oldest was 6. And when they got back to South Africa, for the first time in their lives, they saw snails and slugs. And I remember them spending hours watching snails and slugs. It almost became their pets because they had not seen that before. But there's something about a slug. It's slimy. It's slow moving. And the writer here is going to talk these Christian Hebrews through how to move from sluggishness to becoming spirited. When you encounter sluggishness, you need to know how to conquer it. And how do you conquer it? Well, you cannot allow yourself to be captivated by ideology. In the first 3 verses, it's ideology that captivates and restricts the possibility for mind change. You cannot go back to the old ways and get trapped by the old ways, the old covenant, the law, the strictures, 613 of them. That's a conservative count by one of the greatest rabbinic scholars who's ever lived, Moses Maimonides, my favorite Jewish rabbi. Very astute individual. 613 laws, he counts. 265 negative, and the balance are positive. So leave rule following, because that is first year consciousness, and press on. Press on to what? In Philippians, Paul says, I forget what is behind and I press forward to the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. He's pressing on to something. He's reaching for something. He's on a trajectory to a target. He's the trajectile, and he's following a path of flight, which is the flight to maturity. It is impossible to have mind change when you are gripped in the throes of an ideology. Verse 4 says, you are weakened, you are in a weakened state, unable to repent. But of course, we know all things are possible with God. If God permits, He can permit a return. But it's extremely difficult for somebody who's ideologically locked. And that's why nothing short of a crisis gets us to break out of the cocoon that we are in our present stage of transformation. So verse 11 talks about don't be sluggish, don't become dull of hearing, because dullness deadens our senses. We are not as sharp as we could be or should be. And then at the end of the section, in verse number 12 of chapter 6, he talks about you will not be sluggish because you have taken the help that God provides in these hot spaces in your life. When you want to defect, when you want to fall back, when you want to drop away from the faith. Ideology captivates, but imagery illustrates what can happen by revealing the reality in our own lives, that it's about productivity. Because God doesn't want to see our lives filled with catastrophe, but productivity. And pressing on is what results from productivity. And bailing out or bombing out results when catastrophe strikes. When we are unproductive, when the thorns and the thistles of the life of our ground is consumed, it is burnt. But the ground still survives. We will be saved so as by fire. 1 Corinthians 5 says, ons sal die stank van vuur in ons neusgate hê, sê die Afrikaans, nee. We'll be saved yet so as by fire. And so that's verse 7 and 8. Now the last section, 9 to 12. Consistency, plodding on, taking the next step and the next risk and the next risk and the next. Consistency is what ameliorates. It makes life worth it. It makes life better in the sense that I am progressing. Some people really have a problem with developing a better self. The less egoically I am attached to stuff and to people, and rather see these connections not as egoic connections, but as bridges that provide opportunities for communing with each other, communicating with each other, and talking to each other in the market space and the marketplace. rather than having our egos tied to people and things and to ideas and to concepts. Paul says, I have no ego attachments. Isn't that amazing? Philippians 3. I count my pedigree, my morality, my education, my religion, my culture, but excrement, but dung in light of who Christ is, and be found in him, not having my own righteousness, but a righteousness which is by faith in the Son of God. So consistency ameliorates by choosing better responses, by making better choices. Verse 9 says, though we speak in this way, yet in your case, beloved, we feel sure of better things. What things? Things that belong to salvation. We sure you won't bomb out because we expect better from you. Text doesn't say they've bombed out. It's getting pretty close. Verse 8, near to being cursed. Take note, not being cursed, near to. And our lives will experience deep and great discipline of God. When we reach a point where we feel we just can't anymore and it's time to give up. This is not the time for giving up. It's time for being strong. Because when you started running in the race, you're given a task to fulfill, a job to do. Keep holding on. I'm pressing on the upward way. New heights I'm gaining every day. Verse 10, for God is not unjust, so as to overlook your work and the love that you have shown for his name in serving the saints and serving. That's what the ancient text says. Serving the saints and still serving, as you still do. And we desire each of you to show the same earnestness, to have the full assurance of hope until the end. Why? So that you may not be sluggish. Here's the second slice of the sandwich in the sandwich structure that starts. Slice number 1, verse 11 of chapter 5. Don't be sluggish. Slice number 2, 6 verse 12. That you may not be sluggish. And sandwiched in between those two verses is the delicacy of what it tastes like and what it looks like to move from sluggishness to being spirited. Voel jy flow in jou Christen lewe? Are you losing consciousness? Maybe some of you, maybe some of us are going down for the third time. As Evie's beautiful song says, going down for the last time. That's when you found me. Because if you go down for the third time, you ain't going to come up. So that you may not be sluggish, but imitators of those who through faith and patience inherit the promises. It takes great patience across a lifetime to continue in the way that is Christ. Don't feel sorry for yourself on this thoughtful Thursday. It's about 8 days to go to payday. That doesn't put something of a chimpanzee into your tank. Maybe the scriptures will put a tiger in your tank. Because you need a boost. You need to take a lifter upper. Maybe some need to take some rescue because they are in total panic on this Thursday morning because of how life has crashed in on them and how they are losing perspective. And so, yeah, a couple of interrogations for you, some interrogatives, some questions to think about on this Thursday morning. And it's a bit early, but here we go. What idolatry of ideas have you embraced and that you are becoming aware of, that you are worshiping at that altar of that ism? Notice how I'm saying it. An ism is a system of ideas that you are bowing the knee to. You need no post-biblical filter Listen to how I'm saying that. A post-biblical filter that you put over the scriptures to follow in the way that is Christ. And isms do that. I don't care what ism it is. Because these isms become holy cows in our lives, sacred cows. And when our sacred cows are touched and attacked, we feel very threatened. Hate the ism, love the ist. The IST is the person. The ISM is the system. And we need affordances of mercy, grace, and love that we need to extend to those who are egoically attached to isms. And in some way or another, all of us are. That's why we need each other. But you need to encounter God and His Word, especially the Scriptures, in a naked fashion. No systems allowed. An engagement with a way that is Christ in a first-hand kind of way. Not proxied out to our gurus, our favorite preachers, our favorite teachers. We all have them. Subliminally we do. But we need constant corrections here. So what idolatry of ideas have you embraced? Number 2, how does productivity or catastrophe reveal the reality you are in? Maybe you're in a tight place this morning. Your debts have overwhelmed you. And fiscally, you can't break the surface. What's that doing to you? Third question. How have you come close to defecting even in this past week? Maybe you are at a point where you want to give up. These Christian Hebrews were encouraged by the writer of Hebrews to press on. Don't stagnate. Don't dehydrate. Get some hydrates into your body, some electrolytes into your system. Stop the caffeine. It's retarding your ability. Where are you postured this morning in terms of stick-to-itiveness? It's a Thursday, second last day for most of us of the work week. Let's keep on holding on in our marriages, as parents with our kids, as grandparents with our grandkids, and as those who have a job in the workspace. I trust that you will have a good day, an encouraging day as you continue. May God bless you.